hope and faith with Heather Murdoch.
Welcome back to Love, Hope, and Faith, and my guest today is Lakishia Banister, author, and gosh, you do it all, Lakishia. We'll talk more about that later. But you, when we went to break, you were talking about how you got in a fight at school and got suspended for 10 days. So commercial break, we talked about the cause for that. Tell the viewers, tell us, why were you fighting?
Well, most of the time, if I got into a fight with someone in school or whatever, it was because I was taking up for someone else.
Yeah.
I can remember going and confronting people because they were bothering my friend, or if you were teasing someone. I was never, even as a teenager, I just didn't like bullying. I didn't like, you picking on the quiet one or
whatever. You had a heart for the underdog.
Yeah, had a heart for the underdog, and so. But as we said on the break, that plays over. Not actually the actual fist fighting, but it plays over with having the spirit of Jesus and just taking up for people and standing up for what's right.
That's right.
And but that year I thought that I was going to fail. I thought I was going to fail the 10th grade, and but my mom went in, and the principal actually went in as well and advocated for me, and I had my days appealed. And so after that moment, I can remember feeling like I wish my mom, she was in church. She would kind of go to church off and on, but we weren't ever obligated to go to church or forced to go to church. I'd go into church as a young girl with my aunt and uncle, who are now my pastors. But when I turned, by the 15, 16-year-old age, I used to say to myself, I wish I had grown up in a very stable Christian household. I want to be closer to Jesus, but I don't know how, because there's all this peer pressure and all this fun stuff that's going on. How do I break away from that? I had a couple of friends in high school who were Christians, like, since I know them, like pretty much since kindergarten.
Yeah.
And their families have raised them up in a Christian environment. So I knew that people were living upright as young people. And see, nowadays I feel like even with our young generation now, we need somebody who's going to stick out and stand out to be hope for other people.
That's right.
So that you can be an example, because it can be done. And so I remember just thinking that, man, I wish, and even when I was in 3rd grade, I had gone to church with my friend who had been saved since she was in kindergarten or whatever.
Yeah.
And I went to church, and I remember giving my life to the Lord in that service, but didn't really
know what that meant, probably, right?
And didn't know what it really meant, didn't know what I needed to do after that.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
kind of
discipleship.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't
and
get the
so
discipleship.
I did that move, but I didn't get into a church.
Right.
To be trained and taught as a young child or whatever. So eventually the same thing just ends up happening.
And that's so important. Don't
Yes.
you think, Lakishia? That's one of my passions, is discipleship.
Yes.
Because we're great as a church in converting people, but we're not always great with the follow-up. We're
Yes.
not always great with, like you said, the training, which is discipleship, teaching
Yes.
people what that looks like. What does it mean? How do we live out our faith?
Exactly, and just learning about the Holy Spirit and
Yeah.
the baptism and just all the things that come along with, how we ought to, our character, and how we ought to present ourselves, and that we're ambassadors for Jesus Christ. Ambassadors, they leave one country and they go somewhere else and they represent that country. They stand in our place. If someone were to leave from here and go to Russia, they're standing in the gap for the U.S. And so that's how we are with Jesus Christ. He's not physically here on the earth. His spirit dwells within us, but we represent him in the way we talk, in the way we act, in the way that we treat others, in the way that we show love and friendship. And that's how people get to see Jesus, through our representation of him.
That's right.
And so I was fortunate enough to have at least friends then who kind of said, this is an example of what it's like to live holy. And and then once, so while I was in high school, and even going through that moment in my life, when I turned 17, I met my husband now, boyfriend then. I met him when I turned 17, and that was like my first real boyfriend. And eventually, that I was a junior then, and when I became a senior, I had gotten pregnant in about November of 2000. And when I got pregnant, the funniest thing happened when I got pregnant, because I remember thinking, an African American girl gets pregnant, and the statistics that come along with that, that I'll be a high school dropout, and just a whole other thing. So I said, I refuse to drop out of school. I said, I've
You
come
go,
this
girl.
far. I said, I refuse to drop out. And I can remember getting up in the morning, and I didn't experience this with my two girls after that, but I used to have fluid in my legs every morning before I got up to go to school, but I wouldn't stay home. In the classroom, when I was sitting in the desk, I would stand up, my legs would be hurting, but I wouldn't.
So okay, so what do you think was in you, Lakishia, that made it different for you?
And that's, I mean, it's hard for me to explain because it was just like I just wanted to just overcome. I just wanted to be better. I just wanted to not fall in the category
Yeah.
with everyone else, but I was determined just to. It was almost like I just wanted to prove that I'm going to do this.
You're different.
I'm
That's
going to. I'm
right.
going to be different. I'm going to do this. Yes, I made this mistake, and my son is in a mistake. He's 14 now, but I'm going to do this, and I'm going to overcome. And that year, I didn't miss not a day of school.
Wow,
I didn't
that's
miss a day of
impressive.
school, and I think I came out in my, I had messed up the years previous to that, but my senior year, like I made such a comeback.
Yeah.
In grades because I was an academic student, and I think I pulled off like all A's, like A's and B's that year. And when I marched across that stage, I was 7.5 months pregnant.
And I just want to say, I just want the viewers to hear, you made a decision.
Yes.
You made a decision. And so much of our life is about making decisions.
Yes,
And the
it's-
decisions that we make can dramatically alter our life for negative or for positive.
Yes, and so it's if I had dropped out of school, maybe I would have gone back to get my GED, but that I didn't have. But I removed that because I decided just to stay. And when I walked across the stage, I mean, 7.5 months pregnant, I had my son, in that July. But by that choice that to abortion was not an option.
Yeah.
But that put my college life on hold. I was thinking, oh yeah, I have him, and I'm not going to be able to go to college in the fall, but I'll go in the spring.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was just so easy. Yes, he's here, but I'll just go in the spring, but that didn't happen.
It's hard. It's
It-
hard being
yeah.
a mom. I mean, at any age, I mean, it's beautiful and it's amazing and
Yes.
it's everything, but it's not. But it's hard.
Yes.
And so when you're a kid, it's even harder.
Yes. And so I mean, I just didn't. So that spring came and there was no college, and I was the kind of person that I just said, welfare isn't an option, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that eventually or whatever. So welfare isn't an option. I'm not going to lower my standards right now. I'll just find a job or something. And
And were your parents supporting you?
oh yeah, my mother, I was just telling Stephanie in the car on the way here, that when I found out I was pregnant, my boyfriend and I, we were about to go on a date, and I wrote my sister this note, and I said, in the note I said, I'm pregnant, I'm about to leave the house, I need you to tell Mom when I leave.
Yeah.
And I when I was walking out the house, I said, my sister's name is Miki. I said, here, Miki, read it, and then, you'll see what to do. And so when I got home when I got in the car, I told my boyfriend, I said, I just wrote the note, and I just gave it to my sister. and he goes,
The
okay.
easy way out.
Yeah, so he goes, okay, we leave out the yard. And when I get back home, my mom looks at me and she says, Miki told me that you're pregnant. And she gave me a hug.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she said, it's fine.
Wow. Okay, so what do you say to someone, Lakishia, who does not have that blessing? What do you say to someone who's in your same situation, but they don't have parental support? Maybe they don't even have parents really in their lives.
Right.
What could you say to that person to help them make the same decisions that you made to overcome?
I think that we all through the choices that we make, there are some consequences that we may have to face. But even if you don't have this parental support, I think that we all could have, there's some type of support.
There's
whether
resources out there.
There's resources
Yeah.
somewhere, whether it's from your friend or whether it's from your pastor or something. But ultimately, from Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's the main support that you would need, because we don't need to live in the face of our mistakes. Yes, mistakes happen, but now it's time to move past them. It's time to say, okay, now I need to get a grip of life. I have responsibilities now. I have to face. I need to take care of my child. I need to make some better decisions. And so even without parents and without that support, we still have to find someone to lean on, because I don't think that anyone can just do it by themselves. I can, especially if you're feeling guilty about it or if you're feeling down about it, you cannot get through that by yourself. And I know there's support in the community from various places where you can probably get some.
Yeah, there is. Absolutely.
Some assistance or some help. I know we have a place back home, a pregnancy center.
I was just going to say, we have the Amador Pregnancy Center here,
Yeah.
and they come alongside women, girls, women that are pregnant.
Absolutely.
It's
We have a
amazing.
lady that works there, and she's the director of it, and I mean, she does a beautiful job with bringing women in, and she'll take pictures of the babies and post them on Facebook and stuff, because she enjoys seeing the progress, how someone comes in one way, and then eventually they just end up growing through that whole transition. And
in our pregnancy center, they do it with no judgment. It's a Christian
Yes,
ministry, but
yes.
it's no judgment. They're going to walk you through whatever decision you make, but they're going to show you all the options of keeping that baby,
Yes.
of adoption or whatever, to
Yes.
keep that baby.
Yes.
But they're going to walk you through that.
Yes,
So.
and even if you in a church, I know that sometimes, if you don't mind me going here a minute,
that's okay.
Sometimes even if you get pregnant and you've made a mistake, if you weren't married and you've made a mistake of getting pregnant outside of wedlock, and you belong to a ministry, hopefully you have some good people in that church who are going to say, okay, God, if you ask for forgiveness, He'll forgive you.
He's a God of mercy.
He's a God of mercy. Your life
Amen.
is not over.
That's right.
Based on a mistake that you've made.
That's right.
And that eventually, you'll have people within that church that's also going to build you up and not turn their backs on you.
That's right.
And
Be
that
Jesus.
they'll work you through the Word of God and say, okay, now you have this child in your womb. We don't want you to abort that baby. We don't want you to feel shameful. But lift up your head. Lift up your head and know that God is with you, and that you can overcome this, and you can be a good parent.
And it takes a community of believers. And
Yes.
that's earlier when you talked about how people, when I was talking about the verse I shared this morning, and you talked about being a representation of Christ.
Yes.
And we, the church, need to be the representation of Christ, and come along people who are in struggle, people who
Yes.
have made mistakes.
Yes.
Because God says, you just love people and let me do the rest.
Yeah. And see, that's the greatest commandment of all, to love Him first, and then to love everyone else.
That's
That's
right.
the greatest commandment, because
I had to take a break. Oh, that thought.
No,
We'll
that's
be
fine.
right back. Stay tuned.